question of ethical spending of the public purse. The place where I always like to start is with something Trevor Manuel once said when he was delivering one of his budget speeches. Very simple thing. He said, it's not our money. So I think that that for me means three things. The first thing is that there obviously is enormous concern amongst those of you who pay taxes and who fund the public purse. There's enormous concern that we should be spending the money in a way that it is going to provide the goods and services that are needed by the public. If you're talking about a provincial government, 60% of our budget is spent on health and education. We obviously also spend money on economic development, agricultural development, social services, transport, road infrastructure. So I suppose one of the major concerns is how do we restore your faith in the public procurement process, and how do we restore your faith that we are spending your hard-earned money on the things you would like to see it spent on. And I think from that point of view in Gauteng, we've introduced something called the open tender system. What we are busy piloting, and there's almost nowhere else in the world where they're doing this, is actually to adjudicate government contracts and make the decisions around those contracts in public. So any of you can come along and you can see and you can listen to the evaluation committee reporting on why they scored who at what level, and why they are recommending that a certain decision be taken. We started piloting it in 2014. At the moment, we've got 72 projects with 10 billion rand, which is 50% of our goods and services spend going through the process. The aim is to have all 20 billion going through it by 2019. The second thing that we've done is we've got something called Operation Clean Audit. And for the first time in 10 years, all of our departments, all of our entities have unqualified audits. 60% are clean. And really what that's all about is saying, let's get rid of irregular expenditure, let's get rid of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, let's get rid of budget overruns. And it's been a massive task to get, the provincial adjustment appropriation that I announced on Tuesday is 105 billion. So it's not petty cash. And you've got 14 departments and 10, 11 entities. So it's quite a business to get them all to that point. But I think what is also important, if we can restore confidence that we're not wasting money and that we are spending it where we should be spending it, is are we also using this money to promote some of the transformational issues? Interestingly enough, when I began my budget speech on Tuesday, I began from the same place in a different way from what you are talking about. And I spoke about the victories of Donald Trump and Brexit. And what are those victories about? At the end of the day, what those victories are about is countries that have not addressed exclusion and marginalization. And I think that's one area. The other victory I spoke about was the third term that was given to Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua, where you have the Sandinista Liberation Front having been voted out of power, been voted back into power, and now even the World Bank has to say, well, these guys are doing a good job in promoting growth and undermining poverty. I guess if the World Bank says that they're not known as left-wing institution, must be true. So one of the things that we've been doing, and again, I think it gets to the point that Mark was raising, as a provincial government, our contribution to macroeconomic policy is to promote fiscal discipline and to make sure that we push up the spend on infrastructure so that we meet the NDP targets on fixed domestic investment. But I think that what we've been doing in terms of the economy is really working with about 11 sectors of the economy that we've set up. We've set up joint working groups with business, with labor, And what we're trying to do in those sectoral groups is we're trying to deal with the small issues. So we're trying to deal with, in the machinery and manufacturing sector, which is one of the sectors that is growing in our province and is one of the sectors that is able to grow jobs and export manufactured goods, primarily from mining equipment into the copper belt. How do we grow that sector, and what are the little things that we have to do with the businesses that are working there in order to grow the sector? I'm happy about the fact that half the new jobs that were created, I mean, we all understand that unemployment is too high. We all understand labor absorption is too high. But I'm happy that half the new jobs that were created, that were announced on Tuesday, were created here in Gauteng, and that it's 2.5 times as many jobs as we created in the second quarter. So in the second quarter, we created 47,000. In the third quarter, we created 126,000. Our provincial economy in the second quarter grew at 2.6%. The key drivers of that growth were manufacturing, finance and services, and logistics. So for me, what I'm looking for is, with all the work that we've been doing in these 11 sectors, can we see anything that's indicating a few green shoots? The third issue that I think that we have to be using the public purse for, and I would then conclude, is that we have to govern differently. And something that our Premier has developed is something we call the Interesano Outreach Program. And it's really about the Premier taking the entire cabinet out to every single community in the province and sitting there listening to what the issues are that are being raised, but then trying to bring together all the different levels of government to solve small problems. And you know, one of the things that we announced on Tuesday was lots of little allocations that we're making to deal with small problems that really make people's lives at a local level very miserable if we don't fix those problems.